Many of us miss the magic in life because we've become skeptical about its presence. To work real magic, you need to open the door to new ways of thinking. In this segment, Wayne tells how to develop a magical new thought process.
My philosophy has always been that no one knows enough to be a pessimist, that the world is just so unbelievably miraculous, and when you start talking about quantum physics and you start talking about the mind and the molecules of the mind and some of the books that I've read in just the last 2 years, I mean, we weren't even thinking thoughts like that 10 years ago. One of my favorite stories was when I was in the 7th grade. Mr. Donald Missig was my science teacher at Marquette Elementary School in Detroit. And they had a test, I think it was on how many moons there are on Uranus. They said that there were 6 moons, and I had put down 12. And I was just guessing. I just put the number 12 down, and I got it wrong. And now, about 3 years ago, they discovered 6 new moons on Uranus. So now the question is 12. So I want to find him and go back and get my transcript redone, because I got that question right. I mean, just because at that moment we happen to have this belief that there are only 6 moons around one of the planets, and they're discovering things all the time, and the things that we thought of as absolutely hardcore truths just a short time ago, like Newton's laws of physics and Newton's laws of motion and all of these things, and the law of cause and effect, we're discovering that at the quantum level we have to toss all of that out. Things don't behave at that level the way we think that they ought to behave, and that we're very limited in that. And so in order to sort of unlearn the skepticism that most of us have about what we can do and where we can go and how much we can have, and that's basically what this entire program is about. It's about ridding yourself of the skepticism about what kind of miracles that you can create. You have probably learned to grow up in a world where you just know that certain things are not possible for you to accomplish. And even if your parents didn't put that into you, and even if the schools didn't and so on, there's still this cultural kind of belief system that it's very difficult to shake. Imagine in some parts of the world, like in India, there are places in India where children are taught that they can put out fire with their minds. And they train their minds, and they work on their minds, and they go inward, and they meditate regularly. There are places in the world where holy men can be buried for 6 and 7 days at a time, and they can literally bring their heart rate down to 0. And step out of it and survive. I mean, we think that that's not possible, that our minds aren't capable of that. We have to rid ourselves of all skepticism about what can be achieved for ourselves. And the way that you do that is through a wonderful old Zen proverb that most of us have never really looked at in depth. And the proverb is, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. Now, it doesn't mix with what you have been taught about doubt and fear. You've been taught to doubt that things will appear for you just because you have a readiness. But let's look at the 4 key words in this concept. The first is the word student. See, you've got to stay a student in life. You've got to understand that you have to have a willingness to allow yourself to learn anything or unlearn anything at any time. A student is someone who decides not to be an expert, who is always, instead of responding with, "Oh, I already know that. Oh, you can't tell me anything new about that. Oh, I've lived a long time, and you can't teach an old dog new tricks," and all of these kinds of statements and belief systems and knowings, which are doubts and fears of discovering something new. You create a new mindset, if you will. And the new mindset is, gee, that's interesting. I've never heard of that before. Yeah, I never heard it quite put that way. I'd like to examine that. I'd like to see if that might have some validity for me. So what we want to do is to make a commitment to ourselves to stay a student. Now, a student is someone who learns from everyone. A student isn't just someone who goes to class and takes notes and passes an exam and gets a scratching on a transcript someplace. A student is someone who sees the fullness of God in everyone and everything. that fullness of God, that divine organizing intelligence, that perfection, that invisibleness that is in all of us, is there in every single one that you meet. The beggar on the street. Just yesterday I was walking along in Calgary, and there was a man who came up to me who just asked for 50 cents. And rather than seeing him as a beggar, I had just given a talk, and I was walking, my wife and I were walking. We were having just a sort of a very peaceful, wonderful post-talk time after signing autographs and all that. And I looked at him and I saw the fullness of God in him. I didn't see a beggar. I didn't see someone who was down on it. I thought to myself, he has something to teach me. You know, if I could take the time and he has a story, and and he probably is here in this moment like a subatomic particle on purpose here to teach me something. And at that moment, what he was there to teach me was to be a little bit more generous, and to be a little bit more compassionate, and to be a little more caring, and to don't be judgmental, because that's sometimes my first impulse. To say, oh, why isn't this person working, and how to, all of those kind of judgments that we all have about that. And I stopped that in that instant, and just reached into my pocket and gave him a little more money than he asked for. And he was, and this enormous, powerful smile came over him, and he looked at me and said, oh, God bless you. And I thought, God bless you, what a thing to say. You know, here he was talking about God. The same God that is in him is in me. The same divine intelligence that's in you listening to this tape is in that beggar and is in me. And if you are a student, you see that, and you become more compassionate, you become more caring, you become more loving, and you don't tell yourself that somehow because I have more, I'm better than he is, or because I'm not on the streets homeless, I'm whatever. You don't erect barriers, and you get off of judgment, and you get off of comparing, and you just see the fullness of God in everyone and everything. And when you do that, even the person who is behaving in a way that you think is nasty, you see that fullness of God in them, and you begin to say, what has this person got to teach me? What is this anger that is coming out of them? What can I do with that? How can I use this and perhaps help them with it? How can I serve a little bit better? You become a student. You do it with your children. I'm the first one to admit that I slip, and it doesn't always work for me, and there are many times when I forget, and then afterwards I sort of rehash it and say, oh, I should have done it this way, or if only I would have done it that way. But it's that wonderful reminder to stay a student. And my daughter, who's a teenager, has boyfriends come over, and they know that I've written books, and I've been on television, and I've produced tapes and all of this, and many times they are really surprised at how much I feel I have to learn from them, because they're teenagers, and I ask them about their music and about their weird haircuts, and I make fun, have fun with them, and wrestle with them, and play, and go out and play ball with them, and talk to them. But more than anything, I feel that they have just as much to teach me as I have to teach them. And if you keep that attitude, it will help you to unlearn some of the things that tell you that, well, if I'm bigger than somebody else, like I'm an adult and you're a child, that I'm a complete person and you're not. Well, children are not apprentice people. You know, they're whole, they're complete, they're total. And if you're a parent, you know that they have something to teach you from the moment of their conception. Because the birth of a child, or the conception of a child, is such a wonderful gift, such a phenomenal miracle, that it every time, and we've had 8 of them, every single time that my wife has gone through the experience of childbirth and feeling that soul growing within her, we are just in awe of the miraculousness of this. And we don't treat that little, especially when the baby is born. I mean, the first moment, my wife always, she'd take the little baby and say, oh, we're so glad that you're here. You have so much to teach us. We're so glad that you're with us, And we feel that way about them all the time. Be a student. Be a student. And the second word in that wonderful Zen proverb is ready. When the student is ready. Ready